everyone! Welcome to my new video series, Artist versus Tools. Every few weeks, I'm going to be creating a new piece of art using a medium that I'm not familiar with, or will just be funny to use, like coffee or really cheap markers or even makeup. This is a concept I've been interested in for a while and really wanted to explore. It's inspired by the sort of comments you see online from people saying, I wish I was as good an artist as you, but I don't have a Cintiq, I don't have Photoshop or Copic markers, and just the whole idea of wanting to explore the idea of whether the artist makes the artist or if the tools make the artist. For this video, I'm using Faber-Castell pencils. Here they are. I've got a pack of 48. I don't have the box anymore, sorry, I threw it out. But the 48 pack was $18 in Australia, so $13 US. They're very cheap. And I have a confession to make. It's not my first time using these. These are pretty much my go-to when I was in school because it was almost all my parents could afford. So I had at least a good decade or so using them, but it has been a few years, so this is going to be interesting. And this is the picture I'll be colouring today. It's just a little mermaid sketch. I have used a light box and inked it onto another sheet of paper, so that way my sketch, I'm not going to mess it up too much with the pencils. We'll see. Let's get on and colour. So I just had a wonderful realization. I thought I had just recorded minutes worth of footage and commentary, and apparently my camera decided to only shoot 3 seconds. So here is my picture, and I apologize because we're gonna have to jump ahead a little because all this stuff the camera didn't capture. So we'll just go from here and we'll call it a learning experience. So I have my slightly coloured lineup, my colouring pencils and my sharpener because I will no doubt need that. So what I talked about that apparently the camera didn't capture is about how with Faber-Castell pencils I find that I have to layer them quite a lot to get some really nice different colours and to do those shadows as well, like with this Elsa picture. Because I find that if I do a very harsh block of colour and I try and go over it, it looks a little streaky, it doesn't really go on that well, so it takes a lot of building up of light colour. So I started with just an orange and just put, like, you can barely see it on the page, just very, very slight colour there. And then I went over it with a teal colour because I thought it would be cool to put in just like really nice coloured shadow. Might get a nice effect with that. I say might, this is all a learning experience. So even though I've used these pencils before, in the future I will be using mediums that I'm not familiar with because I think it's fun as artists to challenge ourselves. And it will be funny to watch me use things I'm not familiar with and try and do a good job of it, even if I totally screw up. So I've done my light colour there, and I've gone in with a brown pencil just to do some harsh shadows and try and give it a bit of three-dimensionality. One thing with colouring and shading, you know, always try and keep your light source in mind. My light source is going to be here, so obviously everything, so my shadows are going to be around this sort of area, like coming from here. And what else was I saying? See, I swear I had some real amazing stuff that I talked about. Now it's all gone. I'm sure it will come back to me. So I have sort of cheated with these before, as I said. I've used Prismas before. They were my colouring method of choice when I was in high school. So I have learned a lot over that time just through a lot of experimentation on how to use them and how they work and how they don't. So this has been a lot of trial and error for me. But I do think you can get a cool result with Faber-Castell pencils. So if you are one of these artists that, again, you're in school, you don't really have an allowance, or if you do, it's really small and certainly not enough to buy Prismas, and you can't wait till your birthday to ask for them for a present or something, Faber-Castells are a good alternative. They're cheap, they're fairly easy to come by, and if you put the time and effort into using them, you can get a nice result. So, I mean, it is a lot of effort to build them up to get a really nice effect, but it is worth it, I think. Especially if you can't afford things like Prismas. I think this is definitely one of those examples where you can have a nice result with a cheaper product if you can't afford the higher end stuff. Where else do I want to shadow? Put one here. Sort of make her cheeks a bit more round and prominent. Ooh, under her lip. That's a good place for one. So I'm not going to color this whole thing in with commentary. I will do a time lapse. So I'll probably color in her skin, maybe a bit of her hair with some commentary, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of what I'm doing, and then the rest will just be time lapse. Because otherwise the video will be hours long, and I'm sure you guys don't want to watch that. But I will tell you at the end how long, or put a number up of how long it took me to color this picture, so you get some idea of how long that I've worked on it. Okay, so I'm probably going to go in. Is there a sort of tannish color? There is. Okay, there's a tannish color. I'm going to put more, just some light shading in with this. So one thing I always keep in mind with coloring as well is that, say, even when you're coloring skin, depending on your lighting, it doesn't always have to be a specific flesh tone. And what I mean by that is, so growing up, we'd always have art meets at one another's house. We'd each have our own characters, and we'd go along, and some of our friends would draw our characters. And when we started building up collections of things like Copic markers and would go along with them, some people would have their reference sheets of their characters, and next to the character reference sheet have a little bit of the Copic marker and the number of it saying, so this part of my character is this exact color. And even when I was younger, I never understood that, because I was very aware of the fact that a color of something will look different under different lighting conditions, depending on, say, what time of day, whether the character's in shadow, whether they're lit by something, whether there is an ambient light of some sort, you know, just all those sorts of things that can change the color of an object. I always thought that you were limiting yourself if you decided to only ever color in your character with that one specific marker, or those two specific markers to shade. I just thought that was a bit bizarre even when I was younger, but each their own. But that's just my own personal thing. I don't believe that, you know, if someone has blonde hair, obviously it will look different under different lighting conditions. So I'm not going to ever say to someone, you must color this character with this one specific color, otherwise you've done it wrong. So, building up this tan color a little bit more. So one technique I learned too when I was learning to color with Faber-Castell pencils is, I don't know if you can see, I'll bring it up a bit. See how we've got some grainy bits where the light bits of the color is there. So this is a technique I sort of taught myself. You can do this with your finger, or I find a piece of paper towel on my finger so I don't get color everywhere. Works well, is because these Faber-Castell pencils are quite, I wouldn't say chalky, but they do have that sort of chalky element in which you can move the color around a bit. I would run my finger or the paper towel across there, and it would sort of soften it up a bit and sort of blend it all together. Obviously you can't really do this in the heavy shadowed areas, but you can do it in the areas where you've only got a little bit of color down. Obviously I'm not going to worry too much about doing it in the tattoo area because they should be sort of skin tone-ish anyway, I guess. So we need some elbow grease for this technique. So I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it softened it up a little bit. And you can see the product left on there. So it's definitely moved some of the color around and blended it out a bit, even if it may not seem like it on camera. What color do I want now? I might put in some blue. This one needs a bit of a sharpen, so I'll sharpen this one. This video is probably going to end up a bit long. I'm looking at it already and it's 9 minutes, so I might just color her skin and we'll do a time lapse of me coloring the rest like her hair. So this is a blue, and you can see how, because I've done the dark shadows in brown, the blue's not coming up very well because you can't really color over a color that you've put down very dark. But it's cool if you say want to add a blue tint to the shadows instead of all of that brown, but you say won't get a thick solid bit of blue if you want that. Ooh, she's getting there. Cool, so I might do her cheeks just while I'm recording with some commentary. Give her some really nice rosy cheeks. So this is the bit where I might screw it up because I'm sort of blending back into the light area. See how it's really not coming up there on the side? There we go. If I push a bit darker it is, but it is hard to color over the areas where you've already put very solid blocks of color down just because of the nature of the way these pencils work. I'm just going to use my finger, blend it back a bit more. Might make her cheeks a bit more rosy around here. See how that looks. So with my line art, I have scanned this already. I find it's a good idea, especially if I'm working with a medium I'm not familiar with, to scan my line art. That way if I color it and it ends up looking awful, I still have a copy of my original line art that I can reprint out and start again, or just have a backup of it. Always a good idea. So maybe a darker pink if I have one of those. Bit more here in the cheeks. Okay, so that's a bit of colouring with Faber-Castells. I'm going to stop now and time lapse, and I'll see you guys at the end. Thank you so much for watching this first art versus tool video. I will be doing more in the future and would love some suggestions of what media to use next time. So leave a comment down below and I'll add it to the list of future videos. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you next time.